Hey everyone, it is 2025 and I can't think of a better way to start this year than with a full garden tour of my Florida butterfly garden in winter. So let's get started. We're starting down here in my main butterfly garden area. This is the area that gets the most sunlight and it's where most of my butterfly attracting plants reside. And this is my newest pentas garden I put in. There's multiple colors of pentas growing in here, but mostly red because that seems to be the most popular with the butterflies. And right behind it are a few Darrow's blueberry bushes and my sweet almond tree that is loaded with blooms and smells so good. And then back in the corner behind it is a jatropha. And butterflies love all of these. And then right beside are a few firebush, a Barbados cherry tree, and there's also some containers in here that have a variety of flowering perennials, all for the butterflies. And here's a look at this section of my garden from the other end. I also, on the trellis over there, have some of my pipe vine growing for the polydamas swallowtails. So there's really not a lot of host plants in this section, but except for the pipe vine. Everything else is more for nectar or the berries for the birds, and the sweet almond is a pollinator's delight. They absolutely love the blooms on this little tree. Up next is where I keep my potted host trees. All of the potted trees in here are host plants for various butterflies. I have other videos about those and the specific butterflies that they attract. So we're not going to go into all of that right now. That's just like an entirely different video. I also have some red pentas growing in here that are potted, getting ready to go off and be sold at the nectary. And I love that these are potted so I can move them around if need be. And right now, many of them are dormant, but in the spring, when they start putting out new blooms, this little area is going to be really, really cool. I cannot wait to see it all come together. And then right here next to the potted tree garden is the newest little section of my garden. It's a combination of natives and tropicals, and I actually quite love that combination. This is the area where the Maypop Mansion used to be. Right here, it was a crop cage that was covered with passiflora incense, host plant to the zebra longwing and the Gulf fritillary, and it got destroyed by Hurricane Milton. So we had to take the whole thing out, and then I had a new space to redesign, which was really fun. And I love how it's come together. And I love, look, there's Monarch. Yay! And I love being able to put a collection of some exotic tropical plants. I talk about this plant, I swear, in every video, but this Malaysian orchid right here is just absolutely gorgeous. And then I also have my alocasias in here mixed in with some pink and red pentas. And then over here, there's some buddleia, my potted pagoda plant, and then this little bed right here with some pentas and salvias. And eventually these trellises are going to be the home to passiflora incense, and they will be the new space for that vine to grow as a host for the butterflies that I lost with the crop cage. Of course, they won't hold as much, but they will hold enough to get that population of butterflies established back in my garden again. Just on the outside is a little clump of Biden's alba, which is a huge pollinator favorite. It's a host plant to the fiery skipper. And so my husband has been so gracious as to leave a big chunk of it in our side yard that does not get mowed over. And there's always little things flying around in there. So I love that. And also in this section are two of my favorite host plants. Well, it's the same plant. I have two of them. The wild lime, there's one in the corner there. In between, I have a papaya tree that I absolutely love. Adds to the little tropical look of this section back here. And then here is another wild lime. Wild lime is the host plant to the giant swallowtail. That's where I find the eggs that I bring in to raise when I have some of these caterpillars and butterflies in my garden. It's not their season right now. All the butterflies that I have are snuggled up in their chrysalides in my garden room, waiting for warmer weather when they will eclose because they overwinter. That is their adaptation for survival. Looking down the back edge of my garden, this is where a lot of my focus has been this fall and winter, as getting some good native and Florida friendly plants in here that are going to grow up and create a privacy screen so I don't have to look at the blue well and the fallen down shed over there in the background of my videos. And so what we've got is on the corner the wild lime. This is the marlberry, which is new, and it's gonna get big and fill out. Then I have a Bahama senna, a red fire spike that hummingbirds absolutely love, a privet senna that got torn apart by Hurricane Milton, but it is filling in and growing in. There is a wild black cherry tree, and down beside it is the Jamaican caper that I just added. And then there's a porterweed and my anise plant. Right in front is my trellised butterfly pea, host plant to the long-tailed skippers. I love them. And then we have to kind of go back a little bit. Here's the anise again, but down beside it is a fiddlewood that I planted, and it will get tall and big and fill in and create a nice privacy hedge for this whole space back here. I also have elephant ears and a split leaf philodendron in there. Some more butterfly pea and two pretty nice size coral fire spikes, and behind it is a fire bush. So it's going to be like a wrap around wall that will just grow in and fill in and be a backdrop in my garden. And the variety of plants that are back there is just going to be beautiful when they all grow in. I am so excited to watch them all grow and to see how they do in my garden. When we sit in my garden chair and look at the butterflies that are going to be flying everywhere, and have that beautiful, beautiful row of a variety of plants with different leaves and different flowers behind us. It's going to be great. I'm excited. The neighborhood dogs are excited too. Then right in front of my garden chairs is this first flower bed, and it is filled with potted red pentas that I am growing for the nectary. They'll be arriving there this spring, and I love, there's something that needs investigated. I love having this right here, and I feel like you don't notice all of the pots as much, and the wall does a good job at hiding them when you're sitting and looking. And there's a lot of blooms forming on a lot of them, so when they all bloom, it's going to be spectacular. The few butterflies that I do have visiting my garden right now always stop in here at some of the red pentas, because butterflies love red pentas. Fabulous plant, but not the dwarf ones. You got to get the heirloom original variety of plant. They're not always easy to find. Right beside our garden seating area where we sit and watch butterflies, I have some potted plants in here. This garden section doesn't really have a name. It's just a variety of things that I like, and they just somehow ended up here. But there are some cool things. I love my little it's potagrica. Is it Jatropha potagrica? Look how pretty this is. I just think these are the neatest looking plants, and I do see butterflies land on them. And there's this little, it's also called a Buddha belly. There's this little belly. And I have just a little variety of host plants, Passiflora pallens and Corky stem passion vine, host plant to Gulf fritillary and zebra longwing. There is some water hyssop in there, host plant to the white peacock. I have some pentas and non-native porterweed that I absolutely love. And I love the combination together of the porterweed and the red pentas. Butterflies love them too. And then on the backdrop behind them, of course, again, is the coral fire spike. And then below that, I have some kunti plants that are all ready for Atala butterflies to come colonize my garden. I also have this really cool bromeliad hanging basket in this section. And you know what's really funny is, like, there's a bunch of those little lizards, and they live down inside of it. You'll see them come out, but when I walk by, I can hear them scurrying around in and under there. I like the colors of it with the backdrop of the coral fire spike. Then beside this garden is what was my pentas garden, and my pentas garden kind of got moved over there. That's kind of where we started. And there are still pentas in here, but I think there's going to be a mix of other things. I have some scorpion's tail. There is some porterweed growing back. Of course, there's tropical sage, but I also have some marigolds growing in here. And then more on this side in the middle is where the pentas and porter wheat combination are. I love those two together. But then coming down here on the end, we have some more tropical sage. And there are random things coming up here. Lots of tropical sage seedlings down there. You can see them all. But I also have some Mexican sunflowers coming in. I'm also growing some Mexican sunflower from seed, and I will plant those in this area also. And there's some zinnias coming up in here too, one of which is blooming. I love it. I love zinnias so much. I've also got some more of those started from seeds, so I'll probably plant some more of them in this area also. So this is going to be more of a mixed nectar garden, which flows right across the walkway into this little garden, which is also a mixed nectar garden. I have some snow square stem that I've trimmed to be more of a rounded shrub instead of a super tall shrub. I want to keep this whole space low all the way down to the other end of the garden, so when we sit in our garden chairs, there's Ray and Ringo, like they are demonstrating, I can see across the whole garden, and there's no really tall plants in this section that are going to block the view. So there are a variety of plants in here. There are salvias, there's a mist flower, there are some lower growing pentas. I have a really pretty lavender pentas that's struggling right now because I moved it, but when it was in its glory, the swallowtails really loved it. I was kind of surprised at how much they loved it. There's starry rosinweed. I have wild petunias that are blooming right now. There is some bee balm growing in here, Texas lantana, and of course my little pickerel weed pot that I just filmed. And look, I added a bunch of water hyssop to it, so that will all fill in and grow out of there. And I just love having that right there. I mean, that worked out perfectly. We had a ton of rain, so you can see there's a lot of rainwater in it. I can't get over how much rain we've had the past couple of days. It was kind of unexpected. We were just that lucky spot in Florida that, happened to get the rain. Look, you can see there's a zinnia coming up right there, left over from last year, because when I deadhead them, I let them drop, and you never know. You just never know when something's going to come up, so I love doing that. And then behind this nectar garden, I have what I refer to as the Caterpillar Cove. And it's this kind of little plank walkway. And I have some of my favorite host plants back here, like this pipe vine, Woolly Dutchman's pipe vine, for the pipe vine swallowtail, but also my absolute #1 favorite caterpillar to raise, the polydamas swallowtail caterpillars. And then this is just a pot that has some sage that came up in it, but I will plant some zinnias in there as the seedlings get bigger. These two are wetland pots that have swamp milkweed in them. You can see it's growing back. Look at that. That's fabulous. And then behind me is a row, there is a Bahama Senna here. And then I have this cute little guy here that is a native, and oh my goodness, its name is escaping me right now, but it's adorable. It stays kind of round. It has little flowers and little tiny, it looks like a miniature orange tree, and it's just going to grow up and be absolutely adorable there. But I also have my row of potted wild limes that are here for my second favorite caterpillar to raise, and that is the giant swallowtails. I like my little plank space because when there are lots of nectar plants blooming all around, I can sneak back here to photograph the butterflies. It gives me a way to get closer to them, and I love that. My next two garden spaces aren't really showing off right now because most of the plants in them are dormant. This is my swamp milkweed garden, and it really looks like a bunch of little sticks right now because they go through a period of dormancy and they will grow back in the spring, and then this whole area will be full of swamp milkweed and some other plants. You can see some of them are growing. They think it's spring now, but I'll take it. And I also have some potted Asclepias perennis or aquatic milkweed in here that is growing back. It got eaten. Sometimes I have rats come and eat my milkweed. Isn't that awful? They came and they ate it all down. But it's growing back, and I moved this snow square stem in here because it's in the mint family, and rats tend to not like mint. So when I have an issue such as that, I just put minty plants around them to keep the rats away. So hopefully when these grow back, they won't get eaten again. This is another wetland garden, but it does not have swamp milkweed. It has some other wetland plants in here like cardinal flower, Stokes aster, upland twin flower, prairie cone flower, cut leaf cone flower, scarlet hibiscus, and I think there's a couple other things. Oh, there's Orangeo integrifolium. I'm naming a lot of plants. Some of them you don't see because they are dormant, but they'll be back. And this is a little red pentas garden I started. It's just going to be another nectar garden, a kind of mishmash of blooming plants, but it's going to also have a lot of red pentas in as well. And it's just kind of like a buffer of more nectar between some of the host plants. And then that leads into this whole section here. It goes all the way back to that border grass back there. And this is my Florida native wildflower garden, which is a lot of the plants in here are dormant. So it looks kind of barren right now. But when this all comes back in spring and grows in and fills in, it will be beautiful. And I've narrowed it down to my favorites in here, so hopefully it'll come out that way. And I spread a bunch of seeds. Like I collected seeds from all these plants and I just kept dumping them back in here purposefully. So there's lots of seeds in here, and hopefully a lot of them will germinate, and this whole area will be like a miniature Florida native wildflower meadow, bordered with some more kunti plants for the Atala butterflies. And then across the walkway there is a bed full of tropical sage, and there's some non-native plumbago in there that I had in my garden years ago, and it keeps coming back. So I finally decided we're just gonna leave it because it is a host plant to some of the tiny blue butterflies, and I do have some of the native plumbago also for them. And it really actually looks pretty when they're blooming, which it's not right now, but the blooms look really pretty mixed in here with the tropical sage blooms. So I kind of try to keep my tropical sage to this area because it likes to come up everywhere. But since it's a year-round performer, it has flowers on it all the time. Always green, always lush, always growing. I might let it spread over into this wildflower garden in a controlled kind of way. So that way it will be there at this time of year. So this section doesn't just look so empty. Here is my tea bush, an absolute pollinator favorite. I love that plant. And there's some scarlet tropical sage and some calamint in here. Still mostly natives all the way down. This is still an extension of the wildflower garden because these are all natives except for the plumbago. Over here we get a little tropical again. I got my monstera, hibiscus, a few tropical plants that I love. My monstera is getting more and more huge every time I film it. Look at those leaves. It's absolutely gorgeous. And it just sprawls all the way back into the shade garden where a lot of the things in the shade garden are dormant too, like my spice bush, and there's a wild black cherry tree and the pawpaw trees. Hurricane Milton really blew out my beautyberry, so I just trimmed it back and it's growing back. What is beautiful in here is the rouge plant. I just saw a cardinal in here yesterday eating the berries off the rouge plant. It was so sweet. I love that little plant. I feel like it just doesn't get enough attention. I do need to come in and clean it out. It's got a lot of Spanish moss in it. But it gets these little berries and little white flowers, and just all year. It's just beautiful. And then you can see I have some spice bush planted in here, but they're dormant. And this is like an area I want to focus on filling out and getting even more plants into my shade garden. And you know, on past garden tours, I really haven't given my split leaf philodendron much attention, but let me tell you, let me come out. This is a spectacular show stopper in my garden. It is huge and it provides shelter. There's a lot of little living things in there. Every time I walk by, I can hear rumble, rumble, rumble. And I know my little black snake friends. They love living in that space. And this whole thing of split leaf, it wraps around, and back behind it is the potted tree house, which is currently not being used for anything. So I feel like I'm always changing what I'm using with that. But let's just have a quick peek in my work area and I can show you the potted tree house. This is where I do a lot of potting, and I keep my pots for my business. And I just have some random plants here that I'm doing things with. And then you can see Hurricane Milton took the railing off of my treehouse. So it's just open there, and I actually kind of like it like that. I can actually stand there and use that as a potting table, which I have done and find enjoyable. But there's also a lot of space up there that I can probably get creative and find something fun to do with it. And I love how it's really hidden by that jungle of split leaf. It's really beautiful. And lastly, we'll walk down the newly named garden space, which I refer to as the Garden of Snow and Fire. It runs down my main walkway just outside of my Florida room, where inside I have my enclosures. There's the lepidarium right there where I raise my favorite caterpillars, you know, polydamas and giant swallowtails. And this was like before, it was like really empty, and you could really see the soil, and then it would get full of weeds. I didn't really have it as a dedicated garden space. And actually last year in my beginning of the year video where I said things that I wanted to work on, this garden was one of them. And so it's become the Garden of Snow and Fire because a lot of the plants in here have snow names. Like there's a snowberry growing in there. We have to go inspect. There's a snowberry growing in right there, and that's gonna get in and full and fill in that area. It gets these little white berries on it. You can see them. You can see them tucked under there. It's really, really a pretty plant. And then I have snow on the mountains growing in down there that were eaten back by the white-tipped black moth, which I absolutely love. Those little adorable caterpillars look like inchworms. This is a snow square stem. That's my silver buttonwood, but its silvery leaves look kind of like snowy. And then just on the other side, there is another snowberry that's growing in. There's also some tropical sage coming in the back. But I just like the planting out of these particular plants together. But then we add some heat right next door with a fire bush coming in, and then there's more snow square stem, tropical sage, tropical heat, snow on the mountain, snow square stem. There is a little aster in here, snow square stem, another snowberry towards the back, more snow on the mountain. And then we come to another fire bush. So I really, really think it's pretty. I'm loving how that little garden section has come together, filled in. I love my gardens really dense. And as the spring season comes and these plants grow in even more, and plus there's going to be tons of tropical sage coming up in and among them, it's going to be gorgeous. I hope you guys enjoyed my little garden tour, and I looked at last year's garden tour, and I have to say I like my garden so much more this year, and I'm excited to watch it grow and to share it all with you. But most of all, I'm excited for the butterflies to come back. If you are not a regular viewer of my channel, just to update you, we had Hurricane Milton come through, and there was so much flooding from it that the county decided they're going to do aerial mosquito spraying, which killed everything. So it's just been a slow recovery with the butterflies, but every day I'm seeing more and more. So that's a fabulous thing, and I just cannot wait to have butterflies flying everywhere in this garden. And yes, I'll definitely be sharing it all with you. So tap the subscribe button, and don't forget to like this video, and I will see you in my next video.